Well, joining me now is environmental journalist and author of the book Choked, The Age of Air Pollution and the Fight for a Cleaner Future, Beth Gardner. Beth, thanks so much for joining us here on the programme. As our correspondent there was saying, David Schuckman, I mean, there's desperately needed action that's required, and this step here in London, charging the dirtiest vehicles, is just one measure being taken.
Yeah, I think it's significant. I do think this ultra-low emission zone that's coming in next week is the first action on air pollution of really any significance in this country over the past 10 years. I do think it will help, and I think it's part of a trend that we're seeing, particularly across Europe, which is that the lead on this issue is being taken by cities rather than by national governments. So, you know, that action is meaningful, and I think it will bring some incremental improvement to London's air, as it will in other cities across Europe that are doing the same. But to really solve the problem, it needs action at the national level.
And that's the question I was just about to ask. I mean, how important is it, though, that this becomes something that's part of a national dialogue rather than cities taking action?
Yeah, it's very important because a city obviously has lesser resources than a nation does, and a mayor has fewer powers than a prime minister or a president does, particularly when it comes to what I think is the sort of root of this problem, which is, you know, in the big picture, fossil fuels, but also a failure, particularly in Europe, of regulation and of enforcement. So a lot of the trouble in London and in other European cities is down to diesel, but the reason the diesel is so dirty is that the companies have been cheating and the governments have failed to enforce the law. So that cannot be remedied by a mayor. That needs to be done at a national level.
If you look at things, though, the last couple of years, say from 2017, 18 and 19, things have started to improve here in London.
Yeah, that's true, and I think that's partially down to, you know, some incremental steps that have been taken by the mayor, Sadiq Khan, to do with retrofitting buses and introducing, there was something called a T-charge, which was a sort of predecessor of this ultra-low emission zone, which is coming in and which is stronger. There's another contributor that gets less attention, but that is actually quite significant, and that's this vogue in London, in the UK, in Europe over the last few years for wood-burning stoves and sort of log fires in your home, and that feels very cozy and wonderful, but actually it turns out that wood burning is a very big source of these tiny particulates called PM 2.5, which are the dangerous ones that can penetrate all the way into your body.
So wood burning here in London, but there are other cities across the globe that burn coal, in Delhi namely, and you mentioned Mongolia, not in your book though.
Yes, yeah. Indeed. Mongolia is not in my book, but I have been there recently. Yeah, so, you know, I think in Europe, wood burning is sort of seen as, you know, a green. I think it's been missold as a sort of, you know, a climate solution, which is highly questionable. But in other parts of the world, we see sort of, you know, a lack of development and a lack of access to, you know, maybe electricity grids in Mongolia and in, you know, parts of India, where people are having to burn, sometimes it's coal, sometimes it's wood at home, whether it's for heating or for cooking in a lot of parts of the developing world, and that is highly polluting, you know, even more so than vehicles or power plants.
Beth Gardner, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.